And here we go. It is that magic moment of the evening, for me anyway, if not necessarily for you. Good evening. Welcome to Shelf Analysis, episode 14 with me, Ricochet. There was no episode 12. I know I screwed up last night. I called it episode 13. We just completely skipped over 12. Most people who are superstitious in any way, shape, or form swap over 13 and avoid it if they can. Just a screw up on my part. It's been a long few weeks. Let's be honest, we are at episode 14 of Shelf Analysis. Thank you for joining me tonight. There is a ton of stuff to happen tonight. We are going to Sweden for our guest tonight. And I would suggest not just any part of Sweden. We're literally going to the middle of nowhere in Sweden. It's a good story. I'd like you to hear a bit more about it. Now, stuff to be done work-wise before we get any further. Some information that I think you need to know to begin with. There are things that are worth plugging. Immediately after we finish tonight at 7:30, I think this is worth the message. Our friends over at the United States Embassy here in Dublin are running a series of Creative Minds events. Now, they normally do these physically. They do them in the real world. They've done them over the last few years. I've even presented a couple of them for them. They're doing them virtually now. Tonight's one is with the wonderful and extraordinary Paul Muldoon. He's going to be really reading a selection of his poems live. That's happening as a Facebook Live event on the US Embassy's Facebook page. Have a look there, US Embassy Dublin Facebook, and that'll happen at 7:30 tonight. That's immediately after we finish doing this here. So maybe worth a skip over if you've got 30 minutes to spare or so. Also worth it. I only really found out this was happening today. I think you should do it. For those of you who, like me, who are devotees of the bookshop in Wigtown in Scotland, and Sean Bethel, who's the owner and the author of his now 2 legendary bookshop Diaries. Every night at 5 o'clock on their page, he's wandering around the bookshop with his phone and asking it what is ostensibly a series of questions and what is a literary quiz. Kind of a cheap excuse, really. I don't think that's the important bit about it. When I switched on this evening, he was showing us Captain the Cat. That happens at 5 o'clock every night on the Wigtown Bookshop Facebook page. Just look up The Bookshop or Wigtown Bookshop on Facebook, and he's doing that every night at 5 o'clock. I think that's definitely worth a mention as well. I gave in for a number of reasons. When I started doing this, this was always going to be a show that was being done here in the Ricochet Book Club. I've had loads of people who aren't on Facebook, who don't have Facebook accounts, ask me how can they see it. Now, you can see some of them on RT Culture. Thank you to our friends there. They've been putting them up. However, a number of people said, why don't you just put them on YouTube? Sure, we can have a look at them there. I've resisted having my own YouTube channel, probably since YouTube became a thing. I'm not really sure why. There may have been a reason in the early days, and I think I've just given up on it now. So as of last night, there's a YouTube channel. It has some of the Shelf Analysis episodes are up there so far. I've had a little time today to put up some of the earlier ones. So I think it's episodes 1 through 8 that are up on the YouTube channel. It will make it easier for your granny or for your friend who's in a different country or somebody who just simply doesn't do the Facebook thing to watch these programs. They won't be going up immediately. You'll be able to find them in the days following them here in the book club. You'll see them there. If you want to know, it doesn't have a snappy URL as of yet. It takes a while to get one of those apparently. So if you just look in any of my social feeds, you'll find the URL. It's in the announcements section here in the Ricochet Book Club. You'll find details of it on my Instagram and my Facebook, my Twitter, rather. You'll find it there as well. That's the YouTube channel. Had to happen eventually. There you have it. Before we go to our guest tonight, we are going to check and see what is going on with Karina the Houseplant. Karina the Houseplant, as you know, has been reading from this. It is the Read Irish Women Challenge 2020, one for every day of the month. Today being the 16th, I think it's a Thursday as well. A book whose protagonist inspires strong emotions is all Karina was asked to come up with. I don't know what she has picked. If I can go here and here, you will be able to find out because I think Karina is in my sitting room. Karina, good evening. How are you getting on? Pretty good. Okay. You've chosen, nice one. You've chosen Tuffy by Sarah Crossan. For those people who haven't read any of Sarah Crossan's books, Sarah writes YA fiction in the form of long-form blank verse poems. Stop, don't let that put you off. What it means is that her stories are immensely readable. You can read them in very short periods of time as well. I read that book, I think, in a space of about an hour, a little more. And she writes the most incredible characters and the most extraordinary stories. She has her first book for adults coming out later this year, which is also going to be in the form of blank verse as well. They are utterly unique. She is also the current Irish laureate for children's fiction, the Laureate Minogue. And I could possibly tell you that she's going to be appearing in a later episode of this, but I'm not going to tell you that because I'm not allowed to tell you these things. I think that's it. Apart from publication day for 2 books. Normally I would recommend a book for you here. However, it's publication day for 2 Irish books. Both of them are fantastic. They are both now worth your buy and your purchase from whichever local bookstore you're getting your books from at the moment. First of which, Naoise Dolan's Exciting Times. You may have heard about this. You may have read stuff about it. You may have read articles about it. Naoise Dolan is a brand new first-time Irish novelist. The book is about 3 characters in Hong Kong, one of whom is Irish, who goes there to teach English as a foreign language, and about the love triangle that develops between those 3 people. It is one of the most accomplished, fantastic, readable, beautifully written, sharp Irish debuts I've come across in forever, and it is going to be huge. That is out today. I tweeted a little bit earlier on some links to either some extracts from it and some articles that have been written about it as well. It's well worth the time. One more time, Naoise Dolan, Exciting Times. That is out today. Also, apologies for not having the real copy of this as well. This is my proof from forever ago when it was sent to me. This is Mark O'Connell's Notes from an Apocalypse. You may remember his To Be a Machine, which was the book about transhumanism that I rattled on about for ages and ages and ages. Mark's book, Notes from an Apocalypse, is about impending apocalypses and thus could not be more timely. Having said that, he spends a lot of his time talking to people who are preparing for them by buying up large tracts of land in New Zealand, people who are proper preppers. He goes to visit Pripyat near Chernobyl as well. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece of journalism. It's all done through the prism of him wondering about his kids. He has just had kids at the time he started writing the book and what the world's going to mean for them as well. So the book is called, again, one more time, Notes from an Apocalypse. That's by Mark O'Connell, and both of those books, both by Irish authors, and they are both out today. I am going to go. This is a rare one because we've done an author in the US. We've done lots of authors in Ireland. Tonight, I am going, I kid you not, to a cabin in the middle of a forest in rural Sweden. I'm going to press this button first so I can hear you. Good evening, Will Dean. Will Dean, how are you doing? And is all well where you are, sir?
Rick, I can't hear anything you're saying. Can you hear me?
That's okay. Can you hear me?
Could you? Are you muted?
I can definitely hear you. I can hear you big time.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear. It's your phone. Your phone is broken, my friend.
I could hear you perfectly before.
It's not
Nothing's
me.
Changed this side.
It's you. Okay. This is going to make it awkward conducting an interview where you can't hear me. I'm definitely here. I knew this was going to happen eventually. It's just we talked earlier and your setup was, do you want to dial in again? Will you dial in again into the thing? I'm going to kick you out. You can dial in again. You can't hear me. So you do the thing again. Okay, here we go. Let's try that one more time. Because definitely we could hear him. I could hear him a little bit earlier. Will is in the middle. Having said that, Will is in the middle of rural Sweden. Will's broadband is probably better than the broadband we've dealt with for any other author that we've had, despite the fact that he lives in the middle of nowhere. There was always the possibility that this was going to occur at some stage during one of these interviews. Will is going to call us back, hopefully, fingers crossed, and I'll get him here. We spoke 5 minutes ago. Nonetheless, anyway, how are you? You can have a chat with me now if you want to. You can get involved. Let me try by pressing this button, see can I get him in here. Can you hear me now, Will? Is this easier? 1, 2, 3, 4, perfect. Boom. See, there we go.
We're better. I'm sorry about that.
As I got rid of you there for a minute, I was just explaining how brilliant your broadband is, despite the fact that you are. Explain to people, because you and I met at the Listowel Writers Week last year. It seems like forever ago, but it's last year we met. We did a panel together. There may have been some late night drinking involved, and as a result of which, we've kind of known each other ever since. But maybe explain to people your story, because you are a British crime author, but you live in the strangest place.
That's right. Yeah, it's great to be with you. By the way, I'm sorry about that hiccup. I live in Sweden in the very bullseye of a huge moose forest. So as I'm looking out of the window now, all I can see is trees. And if I walk outside in any direction for about a day, I'm still in the same forest. So we are truly socially distancing here.
It is breathtaking. I'm gonna try this, and I haven't done this before. I'm gonna try just showing one of your videos here. Okay, so stay where you are. I'm gonna try putting this up here because I've never really done this before. This will go here. That will go there. This will go. I will disappear, and let's try That's the weirdest thing in the world is that is you where you live right now at the moment. You are is that shed that we can see in the background the one that you're in right now?
No, I'm in another shed. There are 4 sheds here, 4 huts, and a lot of green space in between.
Again, I remember having the conversation with you first time around and going, okay, so why did you do this? Because you're not from there. You've no family connection, you know, family ties at the time when you made this kind of decision that you were going to move to the middle of nowhere in Sweden. You were living a completely different life at the time.
Yeah, well, I'm from the East Midlands in the UK, so I'm from a rural area. So I'm used to living quite a simple life outside of a village, but not this rustic. But I always, I was a weird kid. I was very socially awkward. I found a lot of comfort in nature. So even though I was living in London for a bunch of years, I really wanted to escape to the wilderness, and not to a village, but to the true wilderness. And that was 11 years ago, and we've lived here full time now for 8 years. So we're used to not going to the supermarket for 3 weeks, and we don't see any human contact, which is really strange at the moment, because the only human contact I'm ever used to seeing visually is high altitude planes flying overhead, going to Russia or going to the States, and they've stopped. And that's quite unnerving, suddenly not seeing any trails in the sky.
Because I remember you saying to me at the time we initially talked the first time we met about how far it is you have to walk to literally go to your post box if you want to check and see is there any post.
Yeah, it's about 2 miles hike, and my road is not a road; it's a dirt track. So the first 15 minutes of my drive in my truck to get out of the woods is off road, which now I'm used to it. I find it great fun, but initially it took a bit of getting used to, especially in the winter.
Sweden is something that we find ourselves talking about here, because certainly it's been a lot of news stories about how Sweden's been dealing with this slightly differently. And I'm anxious that in the middle of all of this, where we talk about books, we don't really talk about it. But again, Sweden. Oh, so well, now that we've broken the seal on that one, sure. But Sweden has been dealing with this in a kind of slightly different way. How has that affected you, or has it, given where you are?
It's true, and it feels very strange living inside an experiment, to be honest. I mean, our day-to-day lives haven't changed because we live this weird, isolated hermit life anyway. But our family and friends, they go to work still. Their kids are in school. They go to the supermarket. There's no social distancing, and that is really strange. When most of my news input comes from UK and Ireland and America and Italy and France. So it does feel very strange, and it feels like we're in a bold experiment, and I'm not sure if it's the right thing or not. I guess we won't know for a while.
Yeah. I have a few comments coming in. Emer just says, can you ask Will how Bernie is, please? Bernie being your dog. How is Bernie? Is he good?
Bernie's great. He's about 65 kilos now. He's a handful. He chews on logs, so we've got a lot of logs in the house because all of our heating is from logs. All of our cooking, all of our hot water comes from our own logs. And he uses them as chew toys, toothpicks, that kind of thing. So he's always walking around with a log. He's great. He's a good dog. He's a handful. He's a good dog.
Explain to us, maybe before we get into the 3 books that I've asked you to pick, I want to talk to you a little bit about Black River. Explain to us about Black River, and explain to us about the series that it comes from.
Okay, Black River is the 3rd book in the Tuva Moodyson series. So I write these strange, quirky, weird books set in small town Sweden. And they're kind of crime thrillers, but there's also a lot of small town community life going on in these books. And the small town that I've created feels very, very real for me. So in every book, you revisit some of the same characters and the same landmarks. So if you've ever seen something like Twin Peaks or Northern Exposure, it's that kind of vibe. There's a lot of humor as well as hopefully thrills and mystery. But what I'm obsessed with is this small town community vibe. And in Black River, it takes place over Midsommar, which is a strange time of year in Sweden. It doesn't get dark. So the whole book is underpinned by this almost fever dream quality, because people aren't sleeping very much. People are going out all the time. And Tuva Moodyson, my protagonist, who's a young deaf newspaper reporter, her best friend goes missing. So Tuva has to delve into these eccentric villages and these small towns to work out what's going on.
As somebody who's just watched the film Midsommar recently and really enjoyed it, despite the fact that it's out there. Is that a little bit like what life is like in your part of the world at this time of year? I mean, obviously, aside from the brutal killings.
Well, I've got to be honest. I think I've done 4 or 5 radio interviews about the movie in Sweden, and I haven't even seen it yet. But I get the vibe, I get the gist, and as an outsider here, I find Midsommar quite a spooky, weird time. Yeah, it's just so much rich folklore and tradition. It feels quite overwhelming, especially as, at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're sunbathing again. So I'm not used to that. I'm never going to be used to that. And in Black River, Tuva's there, and she's trying to tape up the edges of her blinds in her bedroom because she knows the sun is going to come through, not just a little bit at 4 o'clock in the morning, but strongly at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it is a strange thing, and I'm still not used to it. No.
I remember in what has been my only experience of Sweden so far, really, we went to Stockholm at Christmas, so between Christmas and New Year. And obviously there was almost no daylight. There's there's 7 minutes of daylight and then it's black for the rest of the time.
Rick, you're going to hate me, but I can't hear you again.
Oh, you can't hear me again. No, definitely.
Shall I cut it again?
Yeah, cut it again. Yeah. We'll give that a go. What I'm going to do while Will is gone is potentially show you this, because I think I'm going to ask him a question about it. He put this up on his Twitter feed today. This is the person you've just witnessed, Will Dean, at the age of 20. I think there are questions to be asked here, if you want me to be brutally honest with you, and I think we're going to need an answer. I also think he's back to answer them, so let's find out. Will, now that you're back, I was going to ask you about this question that you put up on your Twitter feed today of you at the age of 20.
That's embarrassing.
Lovely. Look, you tweeted it, not me.
True.
And what were you like when you were that guy?
20. I was like I said, I was a really awkward kid and teenager, but I think by 20 I was more relaxed than normal, and I was with my current wife then. I met her when I was barely 18. She was 21, so we've been going out for a few years, and she really made me grow up, because I was a clueless country kid in London, and she was this much more worldly Swede who was a few years older. So by then I felt quite lucky. I think that I met her, had a good group of friends, and was happy to be in London.
You look a bit rock and roll in that picture. It's a good picture. All right, look, let's get down to the bones of why we're here tonight. I ask all of the authors who come on the show to pick 3 books. No criteria, they can be anything, and just tell us why you like them and why you think we should be reading them. What have you picked for book number 1?
Book number 1 is H is for Hawk by Helen MacDonald. I think a lot of people might have already read this book. I absolutely adore this book. It's a memoir. It's the prose is absolutely stunning. Her descriptions are beautiful. It's about, so I should explain what it's about. It's about Helen herself, her life. Her father passes away, and this book is basically her dealing with that grief and that loss. But she deals with it in a very special way. She's always been very interested in raptors, in birds of prey. But in this book, she's deep in that period of grief, and she decides to adopt a goshawk from a man in Scotland. And she describes a goshawk as half dragon, half leopard. It's this killing machine, this utterly beautiful killing machine. And this book is all about her getting through that intense period of grief in a house with kind of the blinds pulled with this beautiful, dangerous bird. And her descriptions of the nature in the east of England and the forests and the birds and the feathers are absolutely exquisite. And it's a book about obsession and about love and about loss. And it's a book that I return to. I know you're not a big rereader, Rick.
This conversation has come up a lot over the last few days. It did with Ruth Gilligan last night, and I rarely reread things because I am one of those people who just sees a sea of things I've never read in front of me. Absolutely true.
I tend to reread when I need some comfort from something. So like right now, I can't read anything. I'm one of these people who's just messed up by the real life. So what I'm doing is I'm rereading Bill Bryson's A Walk in the Woods right now. And that's very comforting. And this is not particularly comforting in that way, but it's something where if I reread it, I find a lot of new in the book, even though I've read it once before. I see it with fresh eyes and I see things that I missed before. And this the prose is so beautiful that I could read this book 100 times and still get a lot out of it.
I think a lot of people are finding themselves doing the rereading thing at the moment. Okay, so that's H is for Hawk is book number 1 from you. Okay, what have you got for your second one?
Book number 2 is Common People, an anthology of short stories all written by working class writers, edited by Kit DeWall. And I have this very nice memory of sitting around a table with you and Liz and Jane Casey and Liz Nugent and Kit DeWall at Liz Stowell at Writers Week last year. Wonderful memory. And I ended up talking to Kit for hours, and she's brilliant. And she's such a generous person in the writing community. And this anthology that she put together is just absolutely stunning. It brings together writers like Damien Barr and Mallory Blackman and Louise Doherty, big names, with a lot of writers who haven't been discovered yet, and this is their first thing that they've ever had published. And the stories and the poems and the little snippets of memoir are so poignant and hilarious and sad and beautiful. It's just a wonderful body of work, and it's something that I think if people are watching right now and they're struggling to read a full-length novel, they're struggling to have the concentration span, this is the kind of thing where each piece is only a few pages long, but they're very complete. So I love this anthology. I think it's really well put together.
Yeah, I made my way all the way through that by leaving it on my bedside table and reading maybe 1 or 2 every night. And it's maybe the opportunity to flag up with people now, even though it's going to put the fear of a God I don't believe in me, that the Irish version of Common People 32 is going to be coming out in the foreseeable future, although I still haven't finished writing my piece for it, because I'm writing one of the pieces for it as being one of the people who's working class and never actually written anything before. So that terrifies me to be alongside both that compilation and the people in the Irish one as well.
I didn't know that. That's very exciting. That's good news.
It's terrifying. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Let's move on swiftly before I start regretting saying yes to that to Paul McVeigh. Book 3, what have you got?
Book 3 is No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. I'm a massive McCarthy fan. The Road is my favorite novel, but it's not the kind of book I want to recommend right now.
No, definitely.
It's a little too close to the bone, but this is a wonderful kind of literary crime novel. Again, there's a lot of beautiful nature writing. It's set in the borderlands on the Texan-Mexico border, and it's about a heroin thing gone wrong. But the antagonist, the villain in this book, Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem in the movie, in the Coen Brothers movie, is just the most chilling villain I've ever read. He is so cold and calculated and calm. And McCarthy writes him brilliantly. I find the coin toss scene in the gas station, I don't know if you remember that scene.
Yeah.
The most tense piece of writing I've ever read. It's up there with pieces from Shakespeare. It's absolutely breathtakingly tense. And I don't really know how McCarthy does it. You know, I don't know how he maintains such a quality through this story. It's not a very long book, but it's absolutely breathtaking. And again, it's very dark, but there's a lot of humor and levity and love in there as well.
It would astonish me if you didn't have a little of both in some of the recommendations that you're picking tonight. I've got questions for you here just from people in comments already. Madge says, and this is a question that I've asked of most of the authors that I've talked to, and I fear I know what your answer is going to be anyway. How conducive is isolation to writing, given that we're all struggling with reading in the lockdown at the moment?
I mean, I hope my editors aren't watching this right now, but it's not conducive at all. I'm finding that, I mean, even with reading, I normally read 70 to 100 books a year. I have done since I was a teenager. I'm 40 now, and I haven't read a book since February. And I find a new book. I've reread a couple of books, and I'm reading James Lee Burke's Neon Rain right now, but I'm reading like half a page a day. And that's no reflection on his writing. It's a great book. I just don't have the mental capacity for it right now for some reason. I think we're just all trying to comprehend what we're living through. And even though we know we're going to get through this and life will go on, it's just very difficult to get a grasp on it. So I'm not reading much. I'm not writing much, although I am going to write a first draft in May, a secret project first draft in May. And I'm looking forward to that, because when I do that first draft, I will have to get out of the real world for a while and just jump into my imagination for a month. And I think that could be good for me.
I like secrets. Secrets are good. Not so secret. Just before we finish, tell me about the Tube is going to be coming to a screen somewhere near us at some point in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, who knows with what's going on this year? But yeah, Lionsgate, the brilliant people at Lionsgate who made The Hunger Games and Mad Men have bought the rights, and they have a lot of exciting plans for the series. So keeping everything crossed, I would love to see Tuva on screen. That would be great.
Okay, I've got, and this is from because Liz obviously is the puppet master who's literally working me with a pedal immediately behind her. She says there is so much love for Bernie. Can we see Bernie? Can Bernie come into the room? Show us Bernie. I think they're all just from Liz. I think Liz is the only one who really wants. Is it Bernie's fan club?
I tell you what, I would love to do that, but he's in another hut, and getting him over here would result in knocking over the camera. The Wi-Fi would go. The door
Could
would
be chaos.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Liz,
having a bear walk through the place.
Sorry. She can watch the videos anyway on your YouTube channel. She can watch the videos. There's loads of Bernie there anyway. It has been an absolute pleasure as per usual. I hope to see you at some point, my friend, somewhere down the line in the real world, and we can have another late night with a bunch of authors, wherever that may be. It's been lovely having you on tonight from rural Sweden. Thank you so much, Will Dean. Cheers, man.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Not a bother. See you next time, man. Stay safe.
Thank you.
And that is the end of tonight's program. Well, pretty much the end of tonight's program. If you want to get in contact, you can drop me an email at any stage. It's rick@rte.ie. The YouTube channel up and running. Remember, you'll find the details of that in the announcements section here in the Ricochet Book Club, or you'll find it on my socials as well, on Twitter and on Instagram. There are details of the YouTube channel. I'm going to stick all of these videos up there as well. Next week, 3 episodes. So one on Monday, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday. Where are we going? We're going to an Irish writer in the UK. We are going to one of the most famous crime writers in the world. And who's the third one? I think for the third one, we're going to the United States. I think. I should know these things. They're all written down in a diary somewhere. I have them somewhere else. As usual, thanks so much for joining us tonight on Shelf Analysis. Have yourself a brilliant weekend. You'll catch me on RTE Gold tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. as usual. And then we're simulcasting on Radio 1 this weekend, if you're around. So between 2 and 6 on RTE Radio 1 and on RTE Gold this coming Saturday. Other than that, we'll see you again back here 7 o'clock Monday night. Cheers.